Yeah, so I've done many sports in my time, and I've never really liked doing one thing. I get quite bored, and then that started happening in cycling, and I started running more. And I didn't go swimming in the off season, but I certainly surfed and had a background in rowing. And I was in Australia in 2013 with Peter Sagan, one of my teammate at the time, and we're at a triathlon festival. He suggested I do the triathlon the next day. Thought he was crazy, but I decided why not, give it a go, and did that. And I just remember loving it. I remember being in the water, and the people around you kicking you in the head, and you're punching people and scratching people, and then you get on the bike, you go full gas, and then if you're good on the bike, you're in front, so you want to stay in front, so you run as hard as you can, even though you can't run. And just the thrill of the racing really excited me. And so it took a couple more years for me to finally make the switch, to bite the bullet, so they say in English, and stop one sport and try a third sport. And I love this one. I think I've found the one that really works best best for me. Yeah, I mean, Kona it's like similar to cycling with the Tour de France and the Olympics. I mean, the Olympics is a big deal, yes, but the Tour de France is the Tour de France. In triathlon, the Hawaii Ironman, started the sport, so it's always been the holy grail. And I guess obviously the distance being, close to 4K swimming, 180K bike, and then you have to run a marathon, has been enough to scare so many people away from it. So the major participation in triathlon has come in the shorter events. So, and that means that the Olympic distance, is more based on probably what is the more popular distance. But as far as what's the biggest event, the Kona is Kona. It's its own thing. The Olympics, there's what's the biggest Olympics? The Moscow Olympics, the Sydney Olympics, the Atlanta. I mean, they're all different, But Kona, like the Tour de France, it's the Soccer World Cup. There's one of them, and that's the holy grail. And of course, like every sport that I've done, you want to compete, in the biggest event against the best guys, on that one day. And that's how you find out, who's the best. So that's what I'm working towards. The biggest difference I've found is the lack of support. For one of them, in a bike race, you're with a team, you're with a heap of other people all really close to you. You obviously have a team car behind, you have people waiting for you at the finish. So you have all that support. If something goes wrong in the race, you get a flat tire, you're hungry or whatever, you can go and change, go back to the car and get that. Whereas in triathlon, you're on your own, and that's really part of the thrill of it. I mean, at the end of the day, you can prepare. We put so much time and effort into training and preparing the right equipment and everything else, but at the end of the day, you need to go out there and deliver. And I think that's what makes it so much more exciting, is there's so much more pressure put on that preparation. The journey to the start of an Ironman, to try and be one of the best in the world, requires so much work that the racing almost seems like the easy part. It's everything that goes on before that is the most difficult. So very significant differences there between racing on the road and doing a triathlon. Yeah, so the swim and the run, I mean, you get good at something by doing a lot of it. The reason I'm able to do well on the bike is the fact that I've ridden the bike a lot, and so I'm very consistent with that. The swimming and the running, it's the same principle. I need to swim more and I need to run more. Fortunately, the swimming is probably my least worst discipline, running being the worst, because of rowing, and you have a similar concept where you're picking up the water, you're placing, you want to get hold of the water and move yourself past that point. So, obviously rowing at the level that I rowed at, I have a good concept of the feel for the water. So picking up on the swimming has happened a lot quicker than the running. But the beauty is it's a book, but we're all born to run. mankind was born to run. So that genetic makeup, that movement of running is in us all. And the more I do it, the more comfortable I get. And while it'd be great to have some magic thing to make me run fast really quickly, it's simple. It's just going to take time and dedication and hard work. The same dedication and hard work I put into rowing, I then put into cycling. You know, I now have to put into running, and I'm improving. And as to how fast I'll get, you know, we'll see. But I'm working really hard on it, and you know, by October I plan to be certainly a lot stronger than I was last year in October, and see if I'm good enough to, you know, not only get in front on the bike ideally, but stay there when we're running. Well, I mean, with cycling, you learn to train for many hours, and actually I think that having that background has been a huge advantage in triathlon with the demands of triathlon, because the other big difference is in an Ironman, it's like a classic. It's like racing Milan-San Remo or Lombardia or Paris-Roubaix. You know, it's that one day. You got to get it all right on that one day. In a Grand Tour, you can have one not so good day or two not so good days, a great day, you know, an average day, a good day, you know, and then at the end you get a result. You know, in an Ironman, it's just one day. So having the background of racing Grand Tours and racing 1 week stage races and training every day and racing every day hard and being tired has probably meant that the training aspect for Ironman, where you're doing 3 different things, so your legs are sore, your arms are sore, you know, your body's sore, but it doesn't seem to bother me as much potentially as my rivals. I'm also able to race a lot more. Yeah, you get tired from a race, but I'm used to being tired from a race, but then also probably having to race again the next day, whereas in a triathlon, normally that's it. You just sore for one day and then it's over. So I think the background from cycling and that ability to back up, you know, and absorb a lot of work and a lot of hard days on a really tired body is allowing me to pick up this sport potentially quicker than, you know, than others might be able to, and also seemingly probably work, you know, harder than most, because it's just what I'm used to. So yeah, I think it's a huge advantage having the background that I've had in cycling coming into triathlon. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's built for going fast, because you need to go as fast as possible, and I guess people like me coming into the sport change that even more. I mean, you know, last year in Kona we saw an improvement in the bike course, you know, time by 6 minutes, which is a huge amount of time when you think about how long the sport's been going on and people have been racing on that course. But not only did I go quicker, there was also 2 other, you know, great athletes in Sebastian Kinley and Lionel Sanders that were also only 2 or 3 minutes slower than me. So again, they were ahead of the previous time. But if I hadn't have been there, there's obviously a high probability that they wouldn't have ridden that fast. So, you know, the sport, because of, I guess, the speeds at which we can ride at is changing a lot. So the focus of the time trial bike as opposed to the road bike, you know, first and foremost now, I think, is speed. Whereas probably previously the geometry was designed to be a bit more comfortable, so you could obviously get off and run without a huge focus on speed. Whereas now, speed and aerodynamics and having the fastest equipment possible to give yourself a chance to go as fast as possible is probably the priority. But then, fortunately, the geometry of that is also able to make you more comfortable on the bike as opposed to a road time trial bike, and to be able to get off and run, you know, properly, or a road bike for that matter, where you're obviously, you know, it's all about the hip angle, and when you change the geometry, the biggest change is that it gives you the ability to be more open in the hips, which, you know, in turn, in theory, should mean you can run better. So, yeah. Yeah, it's an evolution in the bicycle industry, and I mean, it's obviously a better braking system. There's a reason cars use disc brakes. There's a reason motorcycles use disc brakes. They go a hell of a lot faster than we do on a push bike. So it's obviously the most effective braking system. I think it's fantastic. It's safer. People are, there's a lot of crashes, particularly with people that aren't super competent on a bike, particularly in a racing environment, come from holding the brakes or taking too much brake or the wrong brake at the wrong time, and there's an accident. And I think that people moving towards disc brakes, particularly on the road, I think it's a much safer option, and I think also just give people a lot more confidence. They'll be able to go out and ride their bike and not be, particularly when it's raining or the weather's bad, to be a lot more confident to be able to enjoy their ride without the fear of the things that can go wrong because of the braking. So yeah. So with this bike, I mean, there was a few things. I obviously use the BOLIDE, in lots of races now, and I've had some great success on it. So the biggest issue that you do have in a triathlon, as I said, back to the same with the road race, the difference is the support. So you're carrying all the food yourself. And so my biggest thing with the new bike, when Luciano Fausto approached me about this project, was that part has to be as simple as possible. It has to be in a place that you clearly know it's there, and I felt that was sort of in front of you around the cockpit area, and then also you can comfortably pedal and be able to access your food, because obviously you don't want to be having to reach around or try and find stuff or unzip things. So I think the solution we came up with at the front of the bike there, and where you're easily able to just sort of pick the stuff out that you need through those rubber slats there is, I mean, I'm not a designer or an engineer, but I personally couldn't think of a better option. I mean, to me it just seems so simple, and food's not going to fall out. I had that problem in Kona last year with the way I'd tried to mount my my nutrition. It fell off in the first 5 kilometers, so I had none for the bike leg. And so that the way the system is on this new bike gives me a huge amount more confidence to know that I'm going to have all the things that I need with me without worrying about losing them on the course. Obviously, when you run out of transition after the swim and get on your bike, I mean, you want everything in a race to go as simply as possible, and so not having to stop and lift your leg up to get over onto the bike because it's so high and cumbersome. Having the bike just a little bit easier to jump on and sort of get yourself moving is it seems like such a small thing, but at that moment it's such a huge thing. It's crazy in a race that I'll be looking to go under 8 hours in Kona. But you're talking about a couple of extra seconds, but psychologically, if you're able to just run through transition with your bike and just launch yourself onto it and just go, it just makes you feel great and just keeps the momentum going for a great race. So it's a really key it's a really key addition to this bike, and it's great that they were able to incorporate that. So I mean, it's everything I could have dreamed about and more when we started talking about it. I mean, the BOLIDE was already, to me, perfect. I couldn't have imagined I said if there's any possible way that you can improve on the aerodynamics of the BOLIDE with the restrictions being lifted, with it not being UCI legal, and make it a little bit more triathlon friendly, so somewhere for me to put my food and store my spare tube and spare parts for the bike that I need to carry in a race in case something goes wrong. I said that's really all, as much as I could even dream of happening, and for them to be able to do that, I mean, it's obviously, you can look at it and you can see that it's a BOLIDE. It's an enhanced BOLIDE, an improved BOLIDE. You've got place for the food, you've got place for your bottles, you got a place to store your spare tube and your parts. I mean, again, I just couldn't have dreamt up a better bike. It just looks smart. I know it's the fastest available. I know it's the fastest bike out there, and I just can't wait to race it. I really can't wait. The next goal is in 2 weeks, the Ironman in Zurich. So last year I raced quite a lot leading into Kona, for being my first year to learn as much as I could. And, every race was an improvement really, and you know, it's been nice this year going back to those same races and doing better. So, you know, we know that I'm better than last year, and you know, I'm also constantly improving. So just following a similar build up. So Zurich, and then after that, of course, is Wales, which was the first race I did on the BOLIDE last year, and was able to win that race. So it'd be great to win that again, and then you know, and then it's training camp and Kona time. The biggest goal for the year, it's all for Kona. I mean, that's the only thing that matters. I mean, last year I kind of, I guess, shot myself or jinxed myself with, you know, how I went there by being able to have such a great bike split and put myself in a position to win, and I wasn't able to finish it off. So, you know, I mean, there's all these other races throughout the year which are great gauges for me personally to, you know, ensure that I'm improving and you know, and getting better at racing and getting fitter and stronger. But you know, the biggest one and the one that matters most, the only race that matters, is Kona. And so, yeah, I just, especially with my new bike, I just can't wait to get to that big island and for that gun to go off at the start.